Hey friends, my name is AJ and welcome back to my book nook. It's been so long since I've made a video that it is a different year. Yeah, Happy New Year. It is now 2023 and I have not been the best at uploading videos this past year. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have been very busy and I decided later on in this year that I was going to make a change on the type of videos that I wanted to do. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link in the description, but the basic idea is that I'm gonna move away from doing reviews this coming year. I'm gonna move into doing more of those video essay style videos, as well as I have a few sort of scripted comedic style videos that I think will be really fun, as well as just some other ideas of whatever I come up with, really, that is book related. So yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a change. But I figured I would start the year off the same way I started the previous year off, and I'm gonna do another year in review of every single book that I read in 2022. As you know, I did not upload a lot of videos this past year, but I also didn't do that much reading, honestly. I still did a bit, but I actually had a while of a long reading slump, which I pretty much did not read anything during for a few months. So this year I was only able to read 20 books, 21 technically, but one of those was the same book read twice, so 20 different books, which is a little bit down from the previous year, but it's still pretty close. All right, so let's dive right in. It would have been really helpful to me if I had organized these in order of when I was going to be addressing them. Oh well. Alright, so the first book that I read this year was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I have read this book previously. I've actually covered this book previously on the channel. However, I decided I was gonna do a Pages to Stages video on this book, which I had been promising for a while. I finally did it, watched the movie, thought it was fantastic, one of the best adaptations I've seen. Rereading it as an adult now, it's been really great to sort of revisit it and realize all the things that sort of went over my head when I was younger. The second book that I read is another Canadian Author Spotlight series book. It is the first Canadian Author Spotlight series of this year, 2022, and that is Witchmark by C.L. Polk. This is such a unique and cool idea of magic existing and sort of being a part of the infrastructure, but also being taken advantage of in the dark sides of it. Life post the World War and sort of how that affected the people who lived in this story. I definitely highly suggest this one. I genuinely made this the hardest way possible for myself. I put everything in the reverse order that I would need it. Why do I do these things to myself? I've done this before. Why wouldn't I organize them? So the next book that I read is Crazy Rich Asians, which is another Pages to Stages video. I really like this book. I've read it before. I've also seen the movie before. The movie was sort of the first time I watched a rom-com and like really enjoyed it. I'm not a big romance person. I'm not a big rom-com person. I like them every once in a while, but I'm definitely not someone who's super passionate about them. But I really do love Crazy Rich Asians. I think it's such a fun story. I think the characters are really interesting. There are things that they don't incorporate into the movie where they really dive into the different members of the family in the book, and I think that that's such a great way to tell the story. So next we get into the book which broke my heart and made me fall in love with it, and that is Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. I love this book. I so love this book. I have the sequel up here. I haven't read it yet. I've been very busy and I've been very behind on books that I was planning on reading, but I'm so excited. I'm gonna reread this before I dive into the sequel, just so I can refresh my memory and also to get back into the world. This is such an awesome story. Basically, but yeah, if you haven't read Defy the Night, please do. It is one of my favorite, if not my favorite book that I read this year. I love it and I'm so excited to dive back into that world. Oh! Alright, one thing you're gonna notice about this is that I have read a lot of books that I have read previously because I'm reading now their sequel and I need to make sure that I remember what happened. And that is what happened with the next two books, because I reread Star Trail the Portal Painter and the Star Trail Painter's Keep. This is the sequel. But yeah, this is an independent book series from an author from Nova Scotia. If you haven't seen my videos, it was one of the Canadian Author Spotlight books that I read, and I decided to read the sequel. The author was kind enough to gift it to me. I had met her previously and she had signed the first book for me and she signed the second book for me as well. And that was very, very kind. And I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a cool book. I think you can find so many really unique independent novels. They're really hard to find. But you can find some really, really awesome ones that are just super special, and this series is definitely one of them. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest it. Alright, remember when I said I don't read Remember when I said I don't read a lot of rom-coms? Well, this is a rom-com that I made an exception for. This is Accidentally Engaged by Farrah Heron. This is another Canadian Author Spotlight book. Really, really great. It's super cute. I absolutely love it. You've got this cute little fake dating, if that's something that you're into. It's really great. I highly suggest this. Also, she has a few other ones as well. So the next book is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. I love this book. I've read it before. The movie is my favorite movie of all time. I actually have a book that is by Cary Elwes, who is the guy who played Wesley, and it's these stories of behind the scenes. I love that movie. I genuinely do. And The Princess Bride is such a great book. It's so unique. It's got this amazing work of metafiction. It is super fun to read. And it's just, if you're looking for something that's out there a little bit as far as storytelling, this is it. So this is the other book that was one of my favorites, if not my favorite, that's tied with Defy the Night. And that's funny because it's so different, and that is Ace of Spades. Oh my gosh, this book is amazing. I love this book. I have never been so engaged. I remember reading this and then looking up and it was nighttime. It is so engaging. It is a thriller. It does get very intense. It's such an incredible read, and I feel like I don't want to say much about it because I don't want to spoil everything. Go read it yourself. That's how I'm gonna end that. Alright, so this next two books also go together in a series. They're technically a trilogy and I just haven't read the third one yet. The first one is the one that I had read twice because I had to reread it in order to read the second one, but that is the first two books in the Camelot Rising series, The Guinevere Deception and The Camelot Betrayal. This is such a cool series. If you are a fan of the BBC series Merlin, you're gonna love these books. Basically, the idea is that Guinevere is actually not Guinevere at all. She has been sent by Merlin to protect Arthur as the queen. It gave me massive Merlin vibes. I absolutely loved it. Okay, so the next book is another Canadian Author Spotlight series book, and that is Marilla Before Anne. I'll be honest, this book was a bit surprising to me. It's sort of marketed as like a prequel of what this author imagines Marilla's life to be like before Anne of Green Gables. It did not feel that way to me. It felt more like a reimagining. Not to say this isn't an interesting book. If you're just gonna read this on its own and not even know that Anne of Green Gables existed, I think it would be fine. And then we get into Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen. I love Pride and Prejudice. The first time I read it, though, I was in middle school and I didn't really understand it that much, and I had chosen to read it. It's not even like it was assigned to me. I just liked reading classic novels, even though they went over my head a lot. But I do love Pride and Prejudice. I also watched the Pride and Prejudice movie from 2005 for the first time, along with rereading this book, and I really liked it. Like, honestly, I'm surprised I haven't read it before. I understand why everyone is so excited about it all the time, because genuinely really great. And that hand flex scene, oh. So next we have Daughter of the Pirate King, which is another book that sort of caught me off guard. It's definitely marketed more so as this adventure novel, whereas the sort of romance between the main character and the ship's first mate seems more of sort of like a forbidden romance, enemies to lovers side story. That is really the main storyline. This is pretty much a romance novel. If that's not something you're into, I just want to make sure that people know what they're getting into, but it is pretty good. I did enjoy it. So the next book is American Royals, and this is a book that, I gotta be honest, this was my least favorite book that I read this year, and it all comes down to one single character, and that was Daphne Dayton. Pain of my existence. Honestly, the book itself wasn't that bad, but the longer I was away from it, and the more I kept thinking about it, the main thing that kept coming back to me was how much I hated the character of Daphne. Daphne is sort of one of the noble families. She's the worst. And my issue with Daphne is just that she's presented as if we're supposed to feel bad for her and as if we're supposed to sympathize with her. She's not a sympathetic character. And maybe we weren't supposed to sympathize with her, but I feel like that should be made more clear if we're not supposed to. It's just the way it was written, it very much seemed like we were supposed to be rooting for her to reach her goals, and I really wasn't. Now we get to our final Canadian Author Spotlight series of this year, and that was We Were Dreamers by Simu Liu. This is his memoir. It's a fantastic read. Everyone should read this. He talks not only about himself, but he even talks about his parents' experience growing up in China and not being able to go to school and all of the work that they put in to be able to get an education and come to Canada. It really provides this context for the way they act. It's just such an honest and open and honestly really, really funny memoir. You will laugh, you will cry, you will do all of that good stuff. I love this, and I'm not normally a fan of memoirs. I'm just realizing that I have miscounted the number of books. I said that I read 20. I actually read 21 total that were different because I forgot to write down that I also read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I really, really love the Grishaverse series. I'm honestly not sure how I felt about it. I'm a big fan of Nikolai. I mean, I don't think I'm unique for that. But I don't know, this book I just had a hard time getting locked into. I definitely really, really actually liked Nina's sections. I know a lot of people weren't in love with them, but I really enjoyed them. Parts with Zoya and Nikolai, not in love with, I'll be honest. I had a hard time getting into it. It was very similar actually to what happened for the Shadow and Bone trilogy for me. I liked Shadow and Bone, but I felt like there was just something missing. That is gonna fall. And when it does, it will not be my fault. Well, it will be my fault because I'm the one who put it there. So now we revisit another Canadian Author Spotlight author, but also the first book that I did not make a video review on, but posted a review on my Instagram, because if you don't follow me on Instagram, I am now going to be posting my reviews there. And that is The Bloomsbury Girls by Natalie Jenner. This is a spin-off of her other book, which we did talk about in Canadian Author Spotlight, which was The Jane Austen Society. This is a spin-off following the character of Evie Stone, who is now going to work at a Bloomsbury bookstore. She becomes friends with some of the other women there, and it follows each of those women's stories and has these 3 different romances, one for each woman. And I thought it was super, super cute because each character has a very different personality, and the romances and the way the romances end are fit perfectly to each character. It's such a comfort read, honestly, and I really, really love this author as well. All of her books are just fantastic, and yeah, I can't wait to see what she does next, honestly, because she's quickly becoming one of my favorite Canadian authors. I have no idea if this is in the frame or not. I feel like it totally is. Let me push. Let me push. There, perfect. Don't fall. So next we've got We Hunt the Flame. If you're looking for another unique fantasy series, this is a really fun duology. It reminded me a lot of those sort of quest novels. So for example, The Horse and Its Boy and The Silver Chair in Narnia. The main plots of those are people going on this long journey together and sort of getting to know each other and fighting these monsters. And that is a lot of what this book is them going on this long journey to this place called Shar to try and bring magic back. It is inspired by ancient Arabia. The climax, amazing. I was on the edge of my seat. I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil anything, but there's an amazing character who shows up far too late in the book, and I was immediately just like, oh my gosh, I love this character. It's just amazing. He's a bad guy, but I like well-written bad guys. Give this a read, it's fantastic. I feel like I don't even need to say that. I feel like most people have heard of it at this point. All right, so the next book is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This is a fantastic book. I loved this book. It's sort of like a parting the curtains from the glitz and the glamour of old golden age Hollywood life. It's just such a fantastic novel. I loved it. I felt like Evelyn was such a complex character, not always likable, but very complex and very interesting. If you're wondering if this is a book where you hear so much about it and hear so many people hyping it up online and then it's just like not worth it, it absolutely is not. It is so worth it. That is tipping. Jeez Louise, I do not make good choices. Alright, and then my final book of the year, well technically The Camelot Betrayal was my final book of the year, but I put it with the other one because it made more sense, but the final standalone book of the year is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. It is her memoir. It is so fantastic. I feel like you've probably heard so many people talk about this book because it is amazing. But she talks about both before and after her mother dies. The book is split into that two sections. And in the before, she talks about her childhood. She talks about being thrown into child stardom, her experience acting. And then afterwards, she's talking about, you know, the unhealthy way of dealing with grief and her complicated feelings about knowing that her mother and her relationship was not healthy and not knowing how to reconcile the fact that she does miss parts of her mom. It is such an interesting and heavy read. I've heard a lot of people say that it's like both heavy and also funny. I didn't find it that funny. There is definitely a lot of irony in it. She writes the book from her perspective in that moment. So in the sections where she is a child and doesn't realize how wrong her mother's treatment of her is, she's writing it as if she's saying like, oh, this is for the best. Like, she knows what's best for me. Like, this is what I need to do. And so there is a bit of irony in it, but I didn't find it that funny. I found it very heart-wrenching at times and very heartbreaking, but also still very good. Very heavy read, but very good. I would still highly recommend it. All right, so that is all 21 books that I read this year. As I said, this year is going to be a little bit different. I'm no longer posting just straight out reviews on this channel. I don't think I'm very good at it. And I can usually find something good to say, and then like a few weeks later I'm still thinking about the book and thinking, these are all the things I could have said about things I didn't like, but I also didn't want to bash it because I know how hard it is to get a book out there. On the note of getting a book out there, I'm also going to be working a lot more on my writing this year. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I recently posted a reel talking about my current work in progress, which is sort of a Hallmark movie-inspired romance novel. I am diving into the self-publishing process for that. I have been working on it for over 2 years now. I've already had some people take a look at it, do some preliminary editing as well. I don't know when that will be coming out. It might not be coming out this year at all, but I am going to be working on that a lot, and I figured that if we're talking about our goals for this year, that's what we're going to bring up. As I said, I'm planning on doing some more scripted videos for this channel, some more comedic series for this channel, but yeah, that's my year in review, and that's really what's coming. I hope that you'll stick around. I'm really looking forward to the changes I'm going to be making. But that is it for me today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to hit that subscribe button and stick around because I would love to have you here. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see all of you lovely people in the next video. Bye!